Hello, HoniGAME is back with another video. Up until now, when playing That's Not My Neighbor, all we had to do was fulfill our duty as a doorman, with no other objectives or unlockable endings. But recently, the game has been updated with a bunch of new endings, giving us a glimpse into what happens next when the doppelgangers take over the building. Turns out, there wasn't any invasion. It was all a government conspiracy. But no one knows that a real war is about to break out, and this is the doppelgangers' true plan. So what are they plotting? And will our doorman survive this time? Let's dive into the new endings of That's Not My Neighbor with HoniGAME. I have a feeling that by the end of this video, some of you might start supporting the doppelgangers instead. The more I dig into the story, the less reason I find to support the human side. Honestly, I hope the doppelgangers take over the world in this game already. Curious to know why? Stick around and watch the video. But not everyone gets to watch. This is the HoniGAME checkpoint, and to get through you need to hit that subscribe button. If you don't, I'll send the DDD agents to your house tonight because you're definitely a doppelganger. To understand the hidden story behind That's Not My Neighbor, you need to play the nightmare mode and find the mysterious letter left by a hooded figure. He doesn't attempt to enter the building, but it leaves the doorman a letter filled with symbols that seem meaningless at first. But when decoded, the letter turns out to be a report on a secret project called the Trojan Horse project, funded by the government in 1945. The game setting takes place in 1955, 10 years after the project began. The director of the project, Oswald D. Kepler, is a mysterious figure who never appears in the game, nor is he a resident of the building where you work as the doorman. His name is mentioned only in the letter, and there's no other information about him. Leading the research for the Trojan Horse project is Dr. Afton, a character you've already met. He lives in apartment 1 on the 3rd floor with his wife, Mia Stone. As the head researcher, Dr. Afton was directly in charge of the experiments and created the strange results of the project. The project's goal was to create creatures that could act as spies, infiltrating enemy organizations and destroying them from within. The initial results of the project were incredibly promising. These artificial creatures weren't just able to mimic human behavior, but they were also fluent in every language. Imagine a spy who could speak any language and blend into any country without being detected. It would be a terrifyingly dangerous asset. However, at the time, their ability to physically impersonate humans had significant limitations. They could only imitate humans to a certain extent, far from perfection. Despite this, the creatures displayed remarkable intelligence. They had self-awareness, a desire to blend in, and were eager to hide their true nature. But their poor disguises meant they would be easily detected in real-world operations, ruining any mission. To fix these flaws and turn the creatures into perfect military tools, the US Department of Defense initiated the Evolutionary Algorithm Project. The goal was to refine their ability to impersonate humans to the point where they would be indistinguishable from the real thing, while also training them to obey commands and complete assigned missions. But the creatures became too smart. They started questioning their own existence and purpose. A disaster occurred, as mentioned in the report. The creatures escaped, triggering an emergency lockdown. The doppelgangers broke out of the research facility and began spreading, blending in with the civilian population. Tracking them down and eliminating them became nearly impossible. The truth was eventually revealed, and humanity was forced to face the reality of living alongside imposters. This is why the DDD organization was formed. Its main mission is to ensure the safety of the public by preventing doppelgangers from infiltrating communities. At every building, a DDD agent is assigned to closely monitor everyone entering and exiting. Whenever an imposter is detected, the agent reports it immediately and a rapid response team is deployed to eliminate the threat before it can cause harm. Although this method is rudimentary, it's the only viable solution in the current situation. It has now been 10 years since the Trojan Horse project disaster, and the doorman system is still in use. It's a limited approach, and its effectiveness heavily depends on the skills of the doorman. It's all they can do. Of course, the DDD organization cannot reveal the true origins of these creatures. Instead, they fabricated a cover story claiming the doppelgangers are aliens. They've even gone as far as to create fake evidence, such as the staged photos you find at the beginning of the game. But there's an even deeper conspiracy at play. In my opinion, the whole thing is just an experiment. There's no real invasion happening at all. The doppelgangers are few in number and their ability to impersonate humans is still limited, so they aren't actually dangerous. The more they try to blend in, the easier they are to detect. In the game, if you let a few doppelgangers into the building, nothing really happens. Your shift ends normally, and you even get a performance review. Everything is staged. DDD is just pretending there's an invasion, but they have everything under control. This whole doorman job is just an experiment to test how well the doppelgangers can mimic humans. If they can fool the doorman, they can fool the enemy, and that would mean a successful experiment. The price for this? Just a few insignificant lives, something DDD is more than willing to sacrifice. So in reality, no one wants the doorman to succeed at his job. What DDD is really hoping for is the day when a perfect doppelganger appears, one that can fool the protagonist. However, what DDD doesn't realize is that the doppelgangers have their own plans. They're organizing and preparing to overthrow the very people who created them, which is revealed in the new endings of That's Not My Neighbor. This particular ending unfolds when the doorman lets too many doppelgangers into the building without even bothering to check them. No matter how deformed the creatures look, he just lets them all in. The result, the entire building's residents are killed, including the doorman himself. Before killing him, one of the doppelgangers, trying to impersonate the Afton, thanks the doorman. It tells him that thanks to his negligence, the doppelgangers now have complete control over the building. And soon, they'll take over the entire city, state, and eventually the whole country. This building will become the doppelgangers' headquarters, and humans won't be allowed here anymore. They quickly kill the doorman and all the other residents. It turns out that, in trying to create doppelgangers to protect themselves from enemies, the US accidentally created their own worst enemy, one that will conquer America from within. And they won't stop with America. The invasion will spread worldwide. This ending also confirms my theory that the doppelganger invasion was just a fabricated story by DDD to deceive the public. Each building was just an experiment to find the perfect doppelganger. But they didn't expect a careless doorman to ruin everything. By letting them in, he gave the doppelgangers a place to gather and plan. Now they can launch a real invasion, and the doppelganger takeover has only just begun. This second ending provides more insight into Dr. Afton, his connection to the DDD organization, and his significant role in the Trojan Horse project. To unlock this ending, you need to call the DDD agents to arrest Dr. Afton and his wife when they try to enter the building. However, the person who ends up getting arrested is actually the doorman himself. The screen fades to black, and when the doorman wakes up, Dr. Afton is unzipping the body bag that the doorman is inside. It turns out the doorman was kidnapped by the DDD because he learned too much about the Trojan Horse project. He stuck his nose into things that didn't concern him, discovering secrets he wasn't supposed to know instead of just focusing on his job. But his efforts were in vain. No one is going to search for an insignificant doorman like him, and no one would care if he suddenly disappeared. As a result, the DDD agents decide to dispose of him. This ending reveals that the Afton is far more than just a scientist. He has considerable power within the government and the DDD organization. Dr. Afton believes that the doorman gathered enough evidence to expose the project, which is why the doorman called DDD agents to arrest him. But the doorman had no idea that the Afton and the DDD are on the same side. Or maybe the doorman was simply foolish enough to think Dr. Afton was a doppelganger. Bruh! If that's the case, then he wasn't uncovering any grand conspiracy. He was just being dumb. In the third ending, if the doorman does a good job and lets very few doppelgangers into the building, minimizing casualties, DDD will send him a thank you letter along with his pay for the week. He'll continue working the job the following week, probably until the doppelgangers eventually kill him, at which point DDD will just replace him. Despite the danger of the job and the responsibility of ensuring everyone's safety, the doorman is paid a minimal wage. Which makes sense, considering the DDD doesn't really care about the lives of the people. It's all just an experiment to them. So what happens if the doorman performs flawlessly and doesn't let a single doppelganger in? The DDD will send him a certificate, awarding him the title of greatest doorman of all time. That's it, no reward, nothing else. The fourth ending happens if the doorman deliberately calls DDD to arrest all the innocent people while letting the doppelgangers inside freely. After his shift ends, he'll be immediately fired and then arrested by DDD for indirectly causing the deaths of many innocent people. So, that wraps up my analysis of all the new endings in That's Not My Neighbor. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit that like button. I'll make sure to subscribe so you get notified when my next video drops. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.